Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. Here, as always, my name is Tommy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Matt. Dad, how are you doing?
Living out the April Fool so far this evening, though I did have a very nice dinner tonight. It's only a recording that is bringing out the fool in both of us.
Yes, we are a little peel behind the curtain, a little peek behind the curtain. This is like our fourth time trying to redo this intro. We've cracked or slipped up on our words about 3 or 4 times.
Scene.
But this is the furthest we've made it.
Yes, we've.
But anyway, like my dad said, we are here recording on
this
April 1st,
sure.
the evening, coming off of a week or two of pretty, I would say, quiet news in Packers land, but we're here to break down what we do have. And since we have a bit of a lull here, we are going to do another mock draft here for you tonight, doing all 7 rounds for the Packers using PFF's mock draft simulator, because our last mock draft data, if I'm correct, was, I believe, the start of February, so almost 2 months ago now. Maybe a little longer even, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But so much has changed in that time that we think it's probably best to put a new one out there, a new official mock draft for this upcoming draft, which is April... What's a good question?
27th.
April 27th, thank you.
Is when the start. Thursday the 27th, or it's Thursday, but yeah, it starts on the 27th.
Exciting, only 26 days to go. But first, like I said, let's talk a little bit about some news. But before that, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you heard here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have new episodes, articles we find interesting, news items that are important, anything and everything. Just come give us a follow. We'd appreciate it. And if you really like what you heard as well, come subscribe to us on YouTube. That would really help our numbers. And then follow us on your podcast platform of choice. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find us. We have a big catalog of stuff we've done over the offseason this year, talking about draft prospects we like, the Rodgers saga. I mean, everyone loves listening to that, right? Almost as much as we like recording it, right, Dad? But
it's the gift that just doesn't stop giving.
Oh no, it's the content machine. It's amazing. I'm sure everyone is loving it. But so
it was hard to tell the April Fool's tweets today from the tweets people have put out the last couple of weeks.
Oh, it's been great. I love it so much. What was it? There was one that was just like the classic ESPN graphic, and then it was like Aaron Rodgers still has not been traded, Lamau. And I sent it to everyone I know, and I got a few people just from the thumbnail. But there is still some news in Packers land despite not having much movement on the Aaron Rodgers front. The first thing we're just going to quick talk about is some more pro day news and draft stuff. We have 2 new players to add to the official visits list. The first 2, if you do remember, we talked about last time, were Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia, and Will McDonald IV, the pass rusher out of Iowa State. The 2 new ones on the board are Jamie Robinson, I believe is how it's pronounced, the safety from Florida State, and Jordan Howden, safety from Minnesota. Dad, you have some thoughts on both these players. Do you want to talk about them a bit?
Yeah, so two safeties. So thank you, Packers, for considering the safety room. I think everybody's saying we probably need 2, because we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on with the safety room later. So both of them, looking at the safety room as a whole. So Robinson is somebody who's often mocked to go in like the 2nd or 3rd round. He has a RAS of only 4.89, which is, compared to some of the safeties in the class,
yeah, that's fair.
Is not so bad. His 40 time is 4.59, which is actually within the Packers thresholds for, I think, safeties they've had on the team in the past, though just barely. He's almost 5'11", like 191 pounds or something like that. His not very explosive. And he hadn't done any agility tests. Didn't do him with combine and hasn't had his pro day yet. But he's pretty good at tackling. According to PFF, he only had a 7.5% missed tackle rating, which among the 21 top safeties to be listed for the draft was the 3rd best in the ones that I looked at, and also had the 8th best coverage grade. So he actually is in the top 10 among the 21 sort of draftable safeties they have rated in both, but not very athletic or explosive. Now, the other one has been sort of my late round safety crush, Jordan Howden. I discovered him and doing a bunch of mock drafts. Like, oh, there's another safety left. Let's see what he looks like. It's like, yeah, he's and he's in every site I look at. He's either like a mocked in the 7th round or almost a UDFA. And some of the draft sites don't even list him at all. You can't even draft him. He's not there. But let me tell you why I think that's surprising. So his RAS now, he did his pro day. His RAS now 8.86, 4.4940, which puts him as one of the best of all the safeties available this year. He's got decent size at 5'11", 3/4, almost 6 feet and over 200 pounds. I think it's like 203. So he's got good enough size, and he's got actually a good jump. I don't know what happened at the combine. His vertical was only like 33.5, and at his pro day, he improved it by half a foot, up to 39.5.
He must have been dealing with something during the combine.
Yeah, because that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So now his vertical is elite, and he has a decent broad. I think it's in the good range, and did the agility test at his pro days. One was good, and one was rated as great. So seems athletic enough. I've only watched a little bit of his tape, some highlights, but they look good enough. They look pretty good. He had the best missed tackle rate among all the safeties in the class at only 3.1%. So that put him as the best in terms of tackling efficiency anyway. And I don't know if that necessarily makes him the best in run grade, but anybody else had the 7th best coverage grade by PFF. So there's a lot, I think, to like about this guy, even though some of the draft sites have not thought very high of him. But the Packers seem to be interested.
Yeah, and I mean, in a safety class that's really starved for athleticism and size, I will say though, my guy Jerry Brown did improve his RAS to like a 7, I think, with his pro day testing.
He improved in several things. I was looking at him. I meant to tweet,
and he got taller
that
too.
Day that he took like a 1/10 of a second off of his 40.
You love to see
it. It's like 0.12. It was quite a bit.
That's, you know what that is? It's a very friendly timer. We're going to go with that's a very friendly timer.
Maybe he was dealing with something.
That's true. It's possible. I mean, maybe every safety at the combine was. But it's nice to see an athletic safety, because the other one that's athletic that you would think of is Sidney Brown, but he really struggled with tackling in college. So that's definitely a flag.
He's the best cover safety in the class.
You got to tackle as a safety. You can't not.
But he's also like the 7 out of the top 21. He's like number 17 or 18 in tackling.
Yeah, I mean,
in 2 different sites for tackling grade, he is one of the worst in the class.
I mean, we've seen what happened with Savage. I mean, I think the biggest problem with Savage to me is he just can't tackle. He's not a very good tackler.
Right. I almost feel like if you could like get Brown and somebody who's a better tackler, though I do kind of like Howden. I wish we had gotten more. I've been hoping to get some testing on Skinner to see what he's like. He's like the biggest safety in the class, and also has decent, I think, grades for coverage and tackling.
Yeah,
but I like how I've been drafting like 2 safeties every draft, and I get Howden in the 7th round every time. He's my second safety. Maybe he's not going to last that long. Maybe the teams know better than all these websites.
And it seems like they're like keeping an eye on him. I think I saw he was getting brought in for a visit somewhere else too. I think it was the Raiders, but don't quote me on that. So several teams are taking a look at him, it sounds like. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him move up boards, especially with the weakness of the safety class just in general. Beyond that, for draft news, the other interesting piece was that Gutekunst decided to attend the Tennessee Pro Day, which I guess was happening at the same time as TCU's. So take with that you will, some prospects coming out of Tennessee that the Packers have been linked to already. The first one is Jalen Hyatt. That's the one everyone's going to talk about. Receiver, really, really, really fast receiver out of Tennessee. And then some other ones. Darnell Wright. The
Packers have shown.
Darnell Wright, the tackle out of...
The Packers have shown interest
Packers
in
have already Yeah, the Packers have already been rumored to have interest in Hyatt, so that could be a reason he's there. Some other players, Cedric Tillman is a wide receiver I'm very high on in the middle rounds, second and third round, who's a bigger guy that they could be taking a look at that I would love if they drafted. Just dealt with some ankle injuries last year and really, I think, is better than he showed last year. And then edge Byron Young is an interesting prospect, and Darnell Wright, the tackle, is supposed to go in the first round as well. So just some players they could be keeping an eye on out there in Tennessee for reasons he was going there for the pro day. Do you have any thoughts on those? Or
yeah, it could be simply that there are more players for Tennessee that they're interested in than TCU, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're more interested. It means that they're interested in Hyatt, but not Johnston as much. Though Johnston, he wasn't. He ran his pro day. He wasn't quite as fast, I think, as I expected. He did like a 4.49.
Yeah,
so he's not
fast enough.
It's fast enough, but he's not a second Christian Watson.
He's not DK Metcalf
or DK Metcalf. Yeah, he's not like a super freak where he's really big and super fast. But and his agilities weren't as good either. But maybe they like Hyatt better than Johnston, or maybe they just like we got like 5 guys who want to check out here and only one at TCU, and there almost certainly was somebody on the staff, scout, who was there.
It's
TCU.
Not like no one went to the TCU
right.
one. It's just
we just don't know who those people are, and so nobody reports who's there.
Yeah. And so from there, let's briefly touch on the Rodgers situation, because that's where the money is, baby. That's all we can talk about. That's how we get that
$59.8 million worth of money.
Yeah, that's how we get that sweet interaction. Is talking about the Rodgers and the Jets. They do seem to be at a bit of an impasse. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated thinks it will be sooner rather than later, and what has been reported by Charles Robinson of Yahoo, the terms that he is hearing is a 23-second, a 24-second that can escalate to a first, but the Jets want a pick back in 2025 if Rodgers retires after a year. So that is something to keep an eye on. Apparently, the Packers are digging their feet in on that. Apparently, I think the rumor I heard is that they're looking for a third back, which I don't know why the Packers wouldn't be like, yeah, sure, whatever, because what are we doing with those thirds anyways?
Right.
Yeah, because
you want this burning piece of paper? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the Packers would have been like in 2023 or 2022 without Sean Ryan. I don't know where we would have been.
The whole line would have fallen apart.
Yeah, right. So I don't know why that would be a major sticking point. Probably some money as well. And then also in the meantime, we've gotten the annual league meeting where essentially all the coaches, GMs, everyone gathers together. And usually a lot of talking gets done at these events, and several interviews were done. So just touching on those very briefly. In terms of the Jets, Joe Douglas, the GM of the Jets, said that there is no plan B yet, and that they're pretty much all in on Rodgers. And he was specifically asked about pursuing Lamar Jackson, who apparently requested a trade from the Ravens. And he said that to pursue Jackson while talking with the Packers would be operating in bad faith. I think the main reason it would be he doesn't really want to. He thinks that would probably piss off Aaron Rodgers, and I would not be surprised if it actually would. So,
and then they'll end up starting Zach Wilson again.
Yeah, that's just
because the Ravens won't actually let him go to the Jets.
Exactly, that's not really worth it. It seems like a lot of pressure is being put on Woody Johnson to get this thing done, or from Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, down to him to get this done.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they're. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it came out like the last day of the league meeting that Woody Johnson said he's getting anxious about getting this done. Yeah, I think I wrote it. We talked about this before. It's like, I feel like the Jets and the Packers
mutually assured destruction of their own
destruction, or yes. Like they're the Spider-Man meme. They're pointing at each other. It's like, you're more desperate. No, you're more desperate. No, you're more desperate. I'm more desperate.
I think it's more. I think it's more. I'm more desperate. Everyone's like, I'm more desperate. I'm more desperate.
Or you have the leverage. No, you have the leverage.
And the Packers side of it that we hadn't talked about yet is that they were talking to Gutekunst. This is specifically about the trade itself. And they essentially asked him whether or not he felt like he needed a first-round pick. And he pretty much said, I think they were specifically asking about 13, and he said no, they didn't really need a first-round pick out of this, but that they needed some kind of premium picks was the wording that he said. But the fact that he was like, yeah, we don't need a first. I mean, I don't understand what the big holdup is, but here we are still. Beyond that, though, from Gutekunst's thing. He essentially told his side of the story with how the Rodgers thing fell through, and his essentially telling of it was that he tried to reach out to Rodgers a bunch of times to talk about the future with the team and what the plans were for the year. Rodgers never got back to him, and eventually he was like, "Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I have to do my job." Was I think the quote
right at
he
one
had.
point he said at one point I just had to do my job.
Yeah, and so that's his version of it. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle between the two. I would not be surprised if it is difficult to get a hold of Aaron Rodgers. That kind of sounds on
I
brand.
was listening to who was talking about it today that I listened to. It said that even Lazard said it's hard to reach him in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised. Beyond that, though, the Gutekunst presser I think was fairly minimal in terms of like true content. That was probably the most interesting piece.
Oh, by far. I mean, that caused quite the series of waves through the interwebs.
Yes. And then the LaFleur press conference, I think the most interesting pieces where he specifically said that they need to temper their expectations on Love, just kind of like, hey, pump the brakes, like he's going to struggle at times, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think the most interesting part, which we can talk about briefly here, is that he said that Savage is going to start at safety, and I think he just meant like in the safety room, not necessarily he's like guaranteed a starting spot. And then Rasul Douglas will start at outside corner. And then Keyshawn Nixon will get every opportunity to win the nickel job. All these pieces are from Matt Schneidman on Twitter, by the way, who was at the pressers and tweeting out essentially questions and answers. Dad, what do you think about this? Savage at safety, Rasul outside, Nixon getting the chance to get the starting job. What do you think this means for Stokes? What do you think this means for the safety room in general? I think Stokes is the interesting one. Sounds like maybe they don't think he's going to be ready for the first week.
That is my interpretation. I don't know what else it could mean. That they would just bench him in favor. I think maybe they're worried he's not going to be ready. And so they're talking about is the very start of the season. This is what it's going to look like. And then later it'll change when Stokes is ready to play. I don't know. I'm just making wild speculation here. This is what you this is why you tune to us.
Yeah. For the wild speculation. It's the best part. I don't really know if they really know what they're doing with the corner room because, I mean, they won't say it, but I think Rasul at slot corner was a bad idea and didn't work.
It was a fail.
Yeah, it didn't work at all. And then you put him back outside and he's good again. It's like, wow, amazing. Who would have guessed? And so they have 3 square pegs and then 2 square holes in a round hole. And so they got no one to put in that spot, really. I mean,
it's kind of weird. Well, what they have is they have people in that spot. I mean, Nixon's best position on defense is slot corner, if you're going to play him on defense.
I know.
Savage's best position on defense is probably slot corner.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
But they have 3 outside corners who are all starting quality.
Yes. And it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't really make sense.
So they have 3 outside corners, 2 slot corners, and no safeties.
Yeah. That's kind of true. And I don't know what you do with that because, like, I mean, goodness, do you play Jair at safety? I don't even know. Because it sounds like they don't want to play Rasul there, even though in the preseason last year they played Rasul at safety somewhat.
I mean, maybe they didn't like the way it looked in practice. And
they liked how he looked at slot? They were like, yeah, this is awesome. We're loving this.
Is that because he was guarding Amari Rodgers? Is that because he was guarding Amari Rodgers in the slot? Is that why it looked like it was going to work?
Is it the same reason you know what it is? That's the same reason our defensive line looked amazing. Our D-line was so good.
In the training camp,
no one can block our D-line.
This is the best D-line ever. They're just killing our offensive line. This is going to be awesome.
There's a reason.
It turned out there was a reason for that.
Said, wow, Jake Hansen and Royce Newman really can't block these guys. Who would have thought?
Oh man, we're gonna wreck the league this year.
Oh man, wow! I just think I think Joe Barry said this D line is special like 8 different times in the preseason. I was like, wow, no, they're not. No, they're not.
Not that kind of special.
Oh man, they like the special teams from 2 years ago. That's what he meant. Oh my goodness!
Right, this D line is like our special teams.
This D line is like our special teams. Oh man, it's just he just got confused. Man. It is similar though because it's like I don't I don't. But going back to the corner and safety problem, it's like I don't know what they're going to do there, and that's why we think they need 2 more. But then they got guys who aren't going to get playing time, who are probably some of the better players on the defense. I don't know what you do.
It's not really well constructed now in terms of the
constructed at all.
Balance between the position rooms. So I think they're going to possibly draft 2 safeties and sign a veteran. Maybe we talked about this last time, like Johnson or somebody.
Yeah. I mean,
who
I don't know. I don't really know what you do with it. I'm less concerned about. I'm not really that concerned about who's playing. I'm not as concerned about who's playing safety. Well, that's just like a known problem. So obviously I'm concerned, but I just don't understand how are you going to get Jair, Stokes, and Douglas on the field at the same time? I don't understand how you're planning to do that.
And
when
they have
all
not
of these
wanted
guys
to
have you've put high investment into these players. You got to get them all on the field together, and there's no way to do that without putting Jair in the slot, which they don't seem to want to do.
And they have not wanted to put Jair in the slot. He's probably the best of the 3 in the slot, and they haven't wanted to do it.
I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. This is going to be one of those things that we're saying for the first 6 weeks of the season. It's like, oh, you got to get all 3 of the guys on the field. Like, why is... And then by, like, week 8, we'll put Jair in the slot. And it'll be like, wow, it's working. It's like, yeah, obviously.
Yes, every year there is one of these things. So that all the fans are saying over and over again, why aren't they doing this? And then halfway through the season, they'll do it. It's like, oh, it's so much better now.
Yeah,
why did it take them so long?
Who could have thought? I know, right? But anyway, that's kind of tying up that. Dad, do you have anything else you wanted to discuss news-wise before we get into this mock draft, or...
I think that's it. I mean, I haven't heard and I too much about the different, if there are other pro days that Gutekunst has been to. I just wanted to comment on this one that just happened with Tennessee and TCU. He's been just, and I think we covered some of the other ones with our last recording, and probably hadn't been to too much in the last week because the league meetings took up a good chunk of time since our last recording. So I may not have actually missed any there. Yeah. And there's not been much in the way of free agent movement anywhere in the league, I think, in the last week either.
No, not particularly. The only big one I've seen... I mean, obviously the big news would be Lamar requested a trade at the start of March. Beyond that, nothing's really coming to mind. I know Odell's had a lot of visits around the league the past few weeks.
And I've seen things in the last 2 days that say, I forget who it was. So, and I don't know how much this is. It probably is speculation. I don't know if this is actually any insider info, but it's almost a done deal for the Jets. Just waiting to make sure that the Rodgers thing goes through. We'll see if that actually turns out to be the case.
Yeah. But let's hit this mock draft.
It's going to take some. I'm curious what the gymnastics the Jets going to have to do to get under the cap after the trade, because they're already very tight against it. They'll take another $15 million just to add Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll find it's a bargain.
Way.
Actually, what they don't realize is they're getting a bargain this year
compared to what we have. Yes,
yeah,
100%.
And that they're getting the level of quarterback play they're getting for only $15 million. They're talking about how much it's going to cost them. Like, spread that out later.
Exactly.
Figure it out.
Well, let's hit this mock draft, Dad. We're going to be picking just for the Packers using PFF's mock draft simulator. And we are going to operate under the assumption that we're going to get 1 second-round pick in this year and next year for Rodgers. So let's run that trade through now first, and then we will go ahead and start picking. If you want to check out our previous mock draft, you can go back, I think it's episode 40, but it's listed there. In that one, it's also tweeted out a screenshot of the picks we had. Probably some similar ones. If you remember our discussion on what the biggest needs for the Packers were, Dad, if you want to just throw that trade through really quick while I'm vamping.
Yeah, so we wanted to go 42 this year, you think, and 2 next year?
Yeah, I think the 2 2s and for Rodgers, and then just kind of force it through.
I don't even have to force it through. It'll accept this. It'll accept 2 2s this year and a 3 next year.
Okay, let's go 2 2s. And
do we want to? So just do any player? Rucker?
Just leave. I think
Corey Davis.
I think just leave it. I mean, you can throw Corey Davis if you'd like. They're going to cut him anyway. So
that's the thing. They talk about trading, including Davis, that's just a cap hit. I think you're going to have to cut him to make room, and then it won't cost the cap so much. Okay, so let's do this trade: a 2 this year, a 2 next year, which has been kind of where the wind seems to be blowing.
Yeah, if you told me that 3 months ago, I would have told you not enough. If that 2 has escalators in it that would make it a 1, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie.
Right.
All
If it ends up being a 2 and a 1, that'll be okay.
So let's push that trade through.
Push that trade through. It's gone through.
And
trade is accepted.
let's do this draft.
I didn't even have to force it. Start the draft. We are now on the clock at 15.
All right, here at 15, some players that are popping off the screen to me. Quentin Johnston is available there. Kalijah Cansey is available there. Unfortunately, Jackson Smith and Jigba went off the board at pick 11 to the Tennessee Titans. That would have been my ideal pick. That is still my ideal pick for the Packers at 15. At this point, the more these pre-draft season is going on, the less likely I think it'll be that he is there. Just given what all the other receivers have been doing, just kind of tanking their own stock in some way.
Since his pro day, I would say 75% of the time he has gone before 13.
Yeah.
In the mock drafts. And the other, I just mentioned some other players who are already gone that some pundits are starting to talk, like Paris Johnson is somebody that's been a darling to mock to the Packers very recently, and he's also already gone.
Yeah, that was when we saw, I believe it was Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network had Paris Johnson going to the Packers.
Commenting about how he might actually be making mocks based on what he's hearing.
Yep, so that's an interesting one. Another player that's
off the board
also
gone.
Is Skoronski. In this mock draft, 12, 13, and 14 were Skoronski, Broderick Jones, and Paris Johnson Jr., so tackle. So if the Packers were to go tackle, it would not be this kind of draft because you don't really want the 4th or 5th tackle off the board. It's a pretty big jump to the 4th tackle in all of the rankings. Yeah, I mean, I could see them being interested in Darnell Wright. He's a really good athlete. And you just give him a year. For me here, I think they would be kind of between. I'm leaning Kalijah Cansey, Dad. Defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, super good athlete.
I liked Cansey, and so we should mention that Quentin Johnston is still available this time around. This time, I have started to cool on him. I have
cooled on him a bit.
He is not as much of a freak athlete as I was thinking in the start of the draft process. He's a good athlete. He's still
he's a great athlete even.
He's still a great athlete, but not quite the freak that I was thinking he was. Cansey, however, might just be a freak.
The only problem with Cansey, like I was saying, defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, 280 pounds, a little undersized. With the helmet scouting and the size, you get a lot of Aaron Donald comparisons. He is a freak of freak athletes. The only problem is his arms are short. And the question is that going to matter at the next level when you're small and you have short arms? But you're also a freak of nature as an athlete. I think
he's been a game wrecker.
Yeah, I think it's worth the risk. I think he's so good at everything else, and he's so quick that I think he can overcome the fact that he does have shorter arms. I am not out on Quentin Johnston. Also, I just don't.
I'm not out on him. I just don't think I want him this high.
Yeah, I don't think I would want him at 15 here. I'm leaning Cansey. What are you thinking? Lucas Van Ness is also here. This is a player that's been mocked to the Packers a lot of times by almost everyone.
I have not been on high as him as the consensus out there seems to be.
I'm not that high on him either, but he's the kind of player the Packers would take.
Yeah, I like his because Cansey, I think, could also play edge with his speed and quickness as well as in the line.
The length, I think, would bother him
arm length,
a lot.
Maybe it might be worse there going against long arm tackles.
Yeah, I think the length at the edge is going to bother him more than on the inside. I think that's my concern is that he has short arms. Like I think tackles are just going to handle him with the length. I think he needs to play inside.
Another couple players.
Kincaid is very interesting.
Kincaid, if he could do any testing before the draft, he has still been.
Yeah,
he didn't do his pro day with his back injury. Maybe he'll have a private workout at some point in the next 3 weeks. I don't know. Another couple players to just consider here:
Miles
Nolan
Murphy.
Smith and Miles Murphy, two edge rushers.
Miles Murphy is one for me where he hasn't done any athletic testing either. He's actually supposed to have a set of private workouts, I think, this week. He didn't participate at the Combine or Clemson's Pro Day. But so I want to see testing on him before I would pick him at 15. But he's young. He's supposed to be a freak athlete. He's got really good burst. He's got probably, I would say, a lot of other people have said as well, the best first step in the class. He does tend to win more with speed than any other like kind of finesse or anything else. So that is his downside. He's not really polished at all, but he's young. Smith is a little small, I think, for what they like their edges to do.
Usually like I think he's smaller than Quay Walker in weight.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
He is a leader and a surprisingly good run defender considering his size.
Yeah,
and it's not been actually as effective at getting sacks as you might expect. So what I have here. I don't know if you feel the same way. I have like 4 or 5 players I'd be happy taking around 20.
Yeah, I mean,
then 15.
For me, I'm between Cansey and Johnston. I think is where and maybe Murphy, but Murphy, I want to see the testing before I really put him in that tier. For me, there's something about. I'm high on Quentin Johnson, but a lot of people whose opinions I trust, they are not as high on him and they have concerns. I think the movement skills on the field are really ridiculous. Like when you see him with the ball in his hands, it just feels really natural. And he's not really like a big, like he's a big guy, but he doesn't play like a big guy. Like he doesn't play as like a big contested catch receiver. Like he's nice with the ball in his hands, which I think would be interesting for the offense. But I'm leaning Cansey here.
I'd be happy with Cansey, I think.
Let's go with
and the trade offer they're giving us is nothing of interest. It's too far back.
Yeah, let's go with Cansey.
All right, we'll go with Cansey, and we'll maybe end up picking it. So when I do this, if I end up with neither, if I don't pick Johnston or get Smith and Jigba in the first round, I almost always get a receiver then in the second. Let's see how the board falls after we take Cansey.
To me, it's going to depend what tight ends are there.
Well, I get both.
Fair. So here we're getting down to the second round. Some players that are interesting. Luke Musgrave is here, tight end out of Oregon State.
Let me pull up all the tight ends.
Yeah. Laporta, tight end out of Iowa, who's someone I'm very high on is here. Darnell Washington, tight end out of Georgia. I think this is where they go.
I think so too. Some people think they might even take him at 15.
Would you hate it? Would you hate it if they took him at 15? I wouldn't. I
wouldn't necessarily hate it. One thing I would say about Laporta, and I think you got me kind of interested in him earlier. You brought him up. I have seen people say that Laporta is what people think Musgrave is.
I agree.
Laporta is actually very athletic.
No one talks about it. Everyone's like, wow, look at these testing numbers from Musgrave. Wow, look at these testing numbers from Coons. Laporta's testing was crazy, and no one talked about it.
Yeah, and he looks really good with the ball in his hands, breaking tackles and running over people.
I'm telling you.
He's maybe my favorite pass-catching tight end in the draft.
I mean, here they have pick 42, and then which they got in our mock from a trade for Aaron Rodgers. Then 43 is Jets, 44 is Falcons, and then 45 is the Packers. Would you hate it if they just went Washington, blank, blank, Laporta?
I have taken both those tight ends on a number of drafts. Usually when I have run a mock where I have 2 extra seconds, so I have 3 seconds, like 42, 43, 45.
Yeah. It is tough. Let's look at some of the other players that are here at other positions, though. I don't necessarily want to do a ton of trades in this mock. I will just run through the picks. So
here's some other players I really like here at this point in the second round who are still available. So we should say Jalen Hyatt is gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he went here at pick 35 in this mock.
So that's somebody they've been interested in, at least met someone. Will McDonald is gone. Somebody they had for a visit.
Yep. Dawan Jones, tackle out of Ohio State, is gone.
Jones gone. And other players who went, Darnell Wright is gone. He went in the first. Kincaid is gone. Myers gone. Mozzie Smith, the D tackle I really like out of Michigan.
I'm not that high on him.
You're not that high on him?
No, I don't really see it.
We'll see what his testing looks like. He hasn't tested yet. I don't think he does speed or agility yet.
Yeah. Some players, though, that are interesting here, like you were saying, though.
I really like Adebawore.
I mean, he's just a freak. He's an absolute freak show.
He's a player I would really like. Some place list him as an edge, some as a D lineman. He's like 280 pounds, super athletic.
Some team is going to take him in the first round, I think. I don't think with those measurables he's going to make it to the second.
I think his draft position and all the mocks is rising, so he may not actually be available at this point.
I mean, you see players from like with worse college pedigrees put up those athletic testing numbers and go in the first round. Like he went to a Big Ten school along with all these athletic like achievements. I would be surprised to see him fall very far. The receiver position here is a little barren at this spot in the draft.
There are some two smalls.
Yep.
And the only players, so second round players here that I would be willing to take in the second round. I really liked the way Michael Wilson looked at the Senior Bowl, but it's a huge risk. He only played less than half of his games.
Yeah, he can't stay
players
healthy.
Here, A.T. Perry maybe.
He's big. He's
big enough. Rashee Rice is just in their measurables.
Yep.
He's more of a contested catch player, even though one thing that came out of the Senior Bowl, he wasn't as tall as people thought.
Yeah.
But one thing that came out of his testing is he has a 41-inch vertical leap.
I mean, did you know that DeAndre Hopkins is only like 6'1"?
There you go.
Like I don't understand how that works, but
so Rashee Rice, 6'1", and he's only 21. Oh no, so he's a leaper. That's why he's getting all those contested catch wins.
Yep.
So he's actually somebody I've been thinking a little bit more about lately. And then some late. So
I'm almost at the point where you wait. I like Cedric Tillman in the third as much as I like any of these guys in the second.
Yeah. Or Xavier Hutchinson.
Or even in the Yosivas.
Yosivas.
Or Palmer. Like, either any of these guys.
He's a little skinny, but he's super fast. His explosive numbers are bad, but he's super fast.
I'm not as worried about taking a skinny speedster in the later rounds as I am like Jalen Hyatt at 15.
I think some of those, will... so, for me, I would say at this point, it comes down to Adebawore or Washington.
To me, I'm leaning Washington. You
know why? Because the tight end room is barren.
It's really bad. It's really, really bad.
And Washington could be a super freak out of this draft.
Yeah, I mean,
on offense.
Obviously, like what was it? I think I was listening to I can't remember some podcast, but I think his like 100th percentile outcome. So if he is as like the best player that he could be, I mean, I think the best version of Darnell Washington is like Gronk. Like if he maxed out everything he could be, like in terms of like skill wise, like became the best player that it was possible for him to become, he could be Gronk. I think there's like a less than 1% chance of that happening, of him being that good. But that's how high the ceiling is for him with his size and his athleticism. I'm down for Washington here. I think, and they just announced they're allowing players to wear 0 now. So think about how sick that would look.
So there you go.
Think about how cool that would be.
I have no objection to Washington here. I often take him here. So
I mean, I'm about a cape for a Washington Laporta back to back. You're gonna have to calm me down to not get us to
okay. Let's take this one first, and so let's see if it'll probably still be a possibility because of where. So Adebawore went at 44, just before 45. I was wondering if he would still be there.
Yeah. I was gonna say the Falcons do need an edge.
Do we need edge help? How urgently do we need edge help? Still too early for any safeties in my book.
I like Onodike Uzoma. I like him people too. Don't talk about him much, but I like him. Edge out of Kansas State. I am here to tell you I would still take Laporta.
So in terms of, I would say, positions of need, which safety I think is still too early for the safeties in this class. The only one I would take maybe is Battle this early, somebody who's supposed to go this early, but he might actually be available in the third round. So probably Onodike Uzama, or if you really want to double up on tight end, we're really going to go early. You could add it. There's good second tight ends that could be added in like the fourth or fifth round.
Do you want to hear my argument?
Sure.
I am that high on Laporta, number one. Number two, if he can pass catch as well as you think, and if we're thinking that under Love, we're going to lean even more into the like Matt LaFleur side of the offense, I don't see why having multiple versatile tight end players could ever be a bad thing. The downside, I think the detraction is that tight end is a slow position to learn, so you would not get a lot of immediate contribution from these guys. Is the counter argument.
Lost season anyway?
I mean,
leading into that. But also, the other thing you could say, if you want to, tight ends are hard to predict. Success rate. So you should, if you want to get a good one, you might have to go to the well multiple times.
The other counter argument is most good tight ends are not drafted high, so spending 2 top 50 picks on tight ends is not a great planning.
Right. That's the other reason. You could get 1 early and 1 late, or 1 early and 2 late.
I think it's just I'm that high on Laporta, but I have kind of steered our last 2 picks, so I'm going to let you make the call on this one. I could see B.J. Ojulari is very interesting. What are your thoughts on him? He's the edge out of LSU.
I haven't watched him enough. Who do you like better, Anudike Uzama or Ojulari?
I like Anudike Uzama. People whose opinions I value, like Benjamin Solak and there's another person, are really high on Ojulari. I think Solak was high on Ojulari, if I remember correctly. In terms of just really good production, I think he's pretty young. You want to double check that for me, so I'm not just making that up.
How old? Let's see if it has it in here.
Yeah,
Uzama's only
21
in a month, so he's
Ojulari
is less than 21.
Less than 21. And I'm
another
pretty
player
sure
who's young. I can't remember now who it was. I was talking about. Oh no, it's somebody's. How about another player that is lower here in PFF than other rankings? I think is Foskey from Notre Dame.
I have not watched. What's your elevator pitch?
I don't know enough about him. I have to admit, I don't know enough about Foskey. I think some people like some of his athleticism, and he may go higher than this, but I have watched a little bit of Uzama, and he looks pretty good. He looks like somebody who could be exciting. I would go Uzama here.
Okay, I am game for that. I really like his initial burst. Just like when you watch him, like he is first off the line. Him and Miles Murphy, I feel like, had 2 of the better first steps that I watched personally. I don't know if he's done actually full official testing yet. I was just trying to find, because I was curious. I was wondering what his jumps were, but I don't think he actually ended up doing. Yeah, he just did measurements: 6'3", 255. Pretty average height, weight, wingspan, hand size, etc. All kind of average. But I feel like when I watch him, he seems like a very good athlete. Unfortunately, we don't have any testing numbers. I'm seeing Laporta staring at me, and it would be really sad if he ended up being really good and they didn't take him. I would be dunking on a lot of people. But yes, let's take Anudike Uzama, edge rusher out of Kansas State.
You don't want to get dunked on because if one of your friends who follows the other team, say the Niners pick him.
Thankfully, the Niners don't have any picks because they use all of their picks on a quarterback they don't play.
Right, who's already been announced to be the backup.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that, Niners. We appreciate it. But yeah, let's take on Uzama.
They did manage somehow to sign Hargraves.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
Doesn't make sense. Where's the money coming from? Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Doesn't make any sense.
I feel like I'm not ready yet to double up a tight end. We will, I think.
But later.
At some point. But later.
Yeah. All right, Anudike Uzama. Let's take him.
I would say the decision that we made was Washington versus Laporta.
Yeah, and I think they go Washington. I think they like him better.
So let's go Uzama. And now we're running down to the round of death.
Yep.
3rd round time.
78th overall pick. Do we just burn it? Do we just pick Tanner McKee? Do we just take a quarterback for no reason? Honestly, would contribute more to the team.
We don't yet have a safety.
3rd round pick.
Hendon Hooker's already gone. But maybe he's got too much possibility to actually use a Packers 3rd rounder on.
I mean, I feel bad for whoever we pick here because we've ruined their career.
Do we have anybody we have a personal vendetta against yet?
I know, right? Who are we trying to burn real quick? But I think when you're here, I would say leaning safe. I'm going to tell you Cedric Tillman.
Right. So here are the players that I would say. We don't have a safety yet. There are a couple safeties that I kind of like here. Jordan Battle from Alabama and Jale Skinner from Boise State. Those would be the safeties that I'd take in this range, typically.
Well,
Wide
we're also in the
don't
range
have
of Jamie Robinson, who they just had for a
he's still
visit.
there, and they had him for a visit. Though I think I like Battle and Skinner more. Those we'll have to see if Skinner does any testing in as he recovers from his torn pec. Boise State had their pro day, and he didn't participate yet.
Can I pitch Tillman to you?
Sure. And so I would say we're either going to go safety or receiver here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never say the Packers won't pick an offensive lineman, but I would also say safety or receiver here. For me, Cedric Tillman.
It's time for your long snapper, folks.
I know, right?
How's that for a third-round pick? We get a long snapper in the third round.
That'd be the only one that would be good. That'd be the only third-round pick that'd be good. After we just signed a long snapper. For Tillman, receiver out of Tennessee, one of the few larger receivers in this class. Came into the combine at 6'3", 213, which is in the 80th percentile, each of those around there for height and weight. Massive hands, 10-inch hands, which is in the 90th percentile. A 4'5", 440, so fast enough, especially for his size. A 37-inch vertical, and a 10-foot, 8-inch broad jump. Was really solid 2 years ago for Tennessee, and then this past year battled ankle injuries that kind of kept him. He played, but he just wasn't at 100% for a lot of the year. And I mean, we saw Devontae in his second year battle ankle injuries, and pretty much his whole game fell apart. So we know how impactful an ankle injury can be on a receiver. I know a lot of draft nicks are very high on him. Connor Rodgers is really high on him. Of the NFL Stock Exchange, one of PFF's podcasts, and that's my pitch on him. Good player out of a school that threw the ball a lot, to be fair, and he was the number 2 on that team behind Hyatt. But I think that's the type of receiver they would be looking for: big, explosive, not super fast, but 4.54 is fast enough in my opinion.
So here's a question for you, because I see these two as being somewhat similar. How do you feel about him versus Xavier Hutchinson?
It's a good question. I think the ceiling's higher with Tillman.
Mm-hmm. Hutchinson, also a really big guy. Similar speed, 4.53.
Just nowhere near the broad jump, nowhere near as explosive.
He's almost 23. How old is Tillman?
He's also a whole inch shorter.
Also about the same.
He's an inch shorter. He's 10 pounds lighter, and he has smaller arms, smaller hands, and he's smaller in every way, and then also like not quite as good an athlete. So to me, Hutchinson is definitely a Packers type of player, but I just think Tillman's ceiling is so much higher. He's a better athlete, and there aren't that many big, good athletes in this class. I would not be surprised if he goes in the second round in the actual draft, just because the type of player he is kind of rare in this class. But if he's there in the third, I think the Packers should take him, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, the one thing essentially, I think about this sometimes in terms of Jalen Hyatt. He didn't have a breakout year until Tillman was hurt.
It's true.
Tillman and Velus Jones last year. Were the big receivers, and Hyatt was behind them essentially.
Yeah.
And then he didn't get. Then he got his chance and blew up this year.
And I mean, he did win the Biletnikoff. But Tillman last year had 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. So
yeah.
he was capable of being the one in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm voting Tillman.
Okay, time for receiver.
I think so. I think they will take one on the first 2 days.
All right, we'll go Cedric Tillman.
We heard them say, I think Smith and Jigba said that they're looking at all the receivers.
All the receivers, right. All right, so of the receivers who are here, I like Tillman the most for about where he's somebody who's supposed to be drafted around this area. The other one would be Michael Wilson if you knew he could hold up.
What are your thoughts on Jaden Reed?
I watched him once a while ago, and I thought the tape looked kind of fun, but he's smaller.
Yeah, and he's 23. Which I think Tillman is too, but yeah, let's go Tillman.
All right, we'll go Tillman. Yeah, Tillman's also 20. Tillman, Reed, Hutchinson, they're all about 23.
Yeah, and we saw them kind of ignore their age thresholds last year too. So
yeah, I think it's gonna happen for Michael Wilson's also 23. They're all about 23. All right, let's draft Tillman, and then we'll see what falls and if there are any safeties that I still like for one of the early safeties. Ooh, I like Ojomo as a second D lineman because I think we're going to need 2 D linemen.
You think?
Look, we have 3. We only have 3.
I'm counting them now. You're right. There are only 3.
Unless you want to count Jonathan Ford.
I was going to say
who was on the roster the whole year, was not active for a single game,
and still contributed more than Sean Ryan.
Sean Ryan. We have 3 defensive linemen who have ever taken a snap in the NFL.
Yeah, it's just Kenny, Slayton, and Wyatt.
So I think they will take 2. They might not take their second one this early. But I like Ojomo. He's really athletic and he's young.
Yeah,
21.6. Well, anyway, let's see. But I want to see if there's any safety left I like. Maybe like
I like Ronnie Hickman out of Ohio State, and I just saw him there.
Hickman I've taken. So I would say Hickman. There's your man, Jair Brown.
Jair Brown's still my guy at this range. I just wouldn't take him anymore in like the 3rd or 2nd.
Yeah, so Hickman's a possibility. You want to take your second tight end yet? Kuntz is still on the board.
Kuntz is, at this rate, I think we just wait for, is it Gindorf out of North Dakota State?
Gindorf. Also, Brenton Strange.
Interesting.
From Penn State.
Oh, yes. Okay.
He looks good.
Just Penn State.
He looks like he could be good. And they whether he'll actually go as late as PFF thinks is another case, but I kind of like him as well.
The thing with
tight end.
The thing with was going to say Kuntz is you're betting on athleticism, which has generally been a good bet for tight ends.
For tight ends, yes.
You just take an athlete at the tight end position; they have worked.
You see it with watch Dawson. His tape, he looks a little kind of awkward.
Okay, good to know.
Very leggy. He doesn't really look smooth.
I was going to say, you know who that kind of reminds me of? Who's like, quote unquote, an elite athlete, but does not look like an elite athlete? Gesicki. To me, when I watch Gesicki play, I'm like, this guy is kind of awkward in his body.
Yeah, so we'll see.
I liked watching Ronnie Hickman play at Ohio State at safety. I think he's a good player, and I like Jair Brown a lot too. We are getting to the point where any player they pick has flaws. Jair Brown, I feel like, looked the best when I watched him play.
His tape looks really fun.
But the testing was so bad. But it did improve a lot at his pro day.
Yeah, I looked up. His 40 time improved by 0.08 seconds, not 0.12. It went from like 4.65 to 4.57.
I mean, that's better, but it's still not ideal.
And
it's not really in their thresholds at all.
4.57 is...
It is?
Is that right? No. Sorry, it was 4.56 was the cutoff. The slowest was Amos at 4.
Small sample size.
Ha was 4.58.
And we saw how that worked. I'm just going to tell you.
Are you saying I'm not arguing in his favor? Yeah.
This guy who was not very good. I mean, he ran that fast. They did take him in the first for some reason that year, though. Really didn't make sense when you think about it. I mean, just a slow safety. They got kind of dazzled by the flashing lights of Alabama.
Yeah, and his jumps also got better as well at his pro day.
Yeah, I mean,
5 inches farther on the broad jump, and his shuttle wasn't bad at 4.22. But
I mean, you watch him run on the field and like watching him play. It's like there's no way this is 4.6.
So right, if you look at only his combine numbers, his RAS is 4.59. You substitute or add in his pro day numbers, and it becomes an 8.17.
It's that high. I thought it was like a 7.6.
No, it's like 817.
I mean, I'm taking Jair Brown here then. If his athleticism like isn't as big of a question mark, I don't think you can deny like what you see.
Depends on what you feel about pro day testing.
Yeah, that's fair, but I don't think Hickman's testing wasn't great either, and they need a safety.
Let's see, Hickman. Where the heck? I have him on here somewhere.
Ronnie Hickman Jr. He just did measurements. Let's see. Has he?
Oh yeah, that's it. I all have for him. I haven't.
He
looked
might actually. He might not have tested at all.
I haven't seen his pro day. He just has his height and weight. Let's see what I can find. But
no, yeah, I don't think he's done any testing yet.
So you really don't know. And
I mean, yeah, just
I have Jair Brown as like number 7 in combined coverage grade.
I mean, I'm picking him in my opinion, but
you want to go back to your first crush on safeties?
Crush, and then which was immediately obliterated at the combine. But I mean, if he's back, baby, he's back. Let's take Jair Brown. Why not?
All right, we'll take a flyer on Jair Brown. It's the 4th round. All right, we're going Jair Brown. We're going back to the well. Going back to Jair Brown.
You cannot go wrong.
And
with
we don't know what Hickman is as an athlete. He hasn't done anything.
That's true. We only have questions. This is a player I've literally never heard of, and I'm going to expose myself. I've never heard of Jalen Moreno Cropper.
Oh, he's a small but fast. I think I looked him up once. 5'11", 172. I think he's got decent
doesn't even
speed.
have his age. Are we sure this guy is real?
He's not the only one they don't have the age for.
Okay.
Somebody I just clicked up a minute ago also didn't have an age, and it was hard to find. Oh, Hickman's still there.
All right, so we're here in the 5th round. Some Fehoko, the edge out of San Jose State, I think is interesting.
The guy I like is Yaya Diaby. Actually, if we wanted to get a second edge, he's athletic.
I don't think it's
available this late.
I don't think it's a super necessary to have a second edge here. Hickman is interesting if they want to go back-to-back safety. That I wouldn't hate it.
I might rather go Howden than Hickman and get Howden in the 7th.
Just wait?
And just wait on Howden.
Or you should take Howden now and not play games.
Ignore what the recommendations are and go with what probably is going to happen.
Yeah.
Who do we want to go another wide receiver?
I was looking at Bryce Ford-Wheaton.
Let's see. Let me pull up all the wide receivers here.
Bryce Ford-Wheaton, doesn't he just seem like a Packer dad? I mean, one of the best performances at the combine of any of the receivers. Big, fast, physical, just a freak.
So Yeshivas was somebody we thought about. He went just 4 picks ago.
This is also the spot where they would 100% look at offensive linemen.
So one person so Wheaton or Dontavian Wicks is another guy, though he didn't test as well. He's not an athletic freak like Ford Wheaton, but he had a really good. He wasn't so good this past year. Really good 2 years ago. But there are some offensive linemen as well. Guard I like here, Zavala. I think he did really well
State.
In his pro day.
He had a really good pro day. I was reading about the other day.
Yeah, and he might not have been invited. Was he invited? Not invited to the combine? But whatever it is, he did a really good pro day. He looked really athletic. It is. I forget what his testing is, but he looks good.
Yeah, I mean, 30 bench reps, 32.5-inch vertical, and a 5-second flat 40-yard dash. I mean, that'll play. That'll play 100%.
We could go. So far for wide receiver, though, we've only picked one.
Yep.
In Tillman.
Yeah, but you gotta imagine that Ford Wheaton or Zavala are two that I'm considering, and then Hickman I wouldn't hate as a pick here. I just think it would be, if we're trying to be accurate, I would be surprised if the Packers went 5 rounds without taking a lineman. I know Gutekunst would be like tweaking at this point, not having picked a lineman.
You think they'll wait this long? I mean, you wouldn't want to. I like him of these. Let's see who are the tackles that are left. I don't think like the tackles that are usually projected. I actually like some of the 7th round tackles more than like these 5th round tackles they project. There's some guys I like. So the guys I like probably will end up going here. and not be a steal in the 7th round. Like Ojukwu.
I've seen you take him in almost every single one of our mock draft Mondays.
He's there at the beginning of the 7th, and he's one of the more athletic tackles and has pretty good shuttle compared to. I don't think he's
him and Gaines out of UCLA.
For some reason, Gaines on PFF has not moved up. Other sites have him in like the 130s. He's still in like the 280s or something in PFF. I don't understand that one. Anyway, but Zavala is somebody who.
Well, what would you do here?
See, I know it is kind of cheap to say, I know from experience I'm going to get offensive linemen I like in the 7th round.
Without doing
that's
that,
probably
what would you do here?
Not going to happen for real. For reals. If we're going to talk for reals. And I do want to get another receiver with only having one, because I think they need to add at least 2 to this team of the players that we like. All right, let's act a little bit more like Packers. And I think they'll take Zavala.
All right. Yeah, I just think I don't think Gutekunst knows how to not take linemen.
He'll start having convulsions.
And I mean,
okay, so we've now added. So let's see who's still left now. After that,
and could you not see a world where if Zavala is really good, they move Elton to center, and just
or Tom to center?
Yep. Well, no, I'm just saying like Zavala in at guard and Elton to center.
Oh, and no other changes. Yeah. So we could see. I mean, his pro day looked really good. Looked really athletic. He's kind of the kind of athleticism they like, and he's got, I think, decent size as well.
And we're down to
Ford Wheaton is still there. Now we've gone 21 picks now from 149 to 170. Still in the 5th round, so we could grab Ford Wheaton now and get a second receiver. Somebody who's really athletic. He wasn't very productive.
I would be very on board with that. I just think he's the type of player they would take. I mean, he's a freak.
He is one of the most freaky athletes in the draft, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if we just want to read it off real quick while I have it up.
You have it up already.
Yeah. So
yes, I will allow you to retort.
6'3", 220, so massive. 33.5-inch arms, massive. Only average size hands. A 4.3, 840, a 41-inch vertical, a 10-foot 9-inch broad jump, an average 3-cone, but then a 4.15 20-yard shuttle, which is 70th percentile. So just a really good athlete, a really, really good athlete. That's huge.
How did West Virginia not get more than 675 yards to this guy?
I was going to say they play in the Big 12. Like no one's playing defense. I don't know what we're stopping.
He didn't lead the team in receiving.
That is a concern, but also we're picking here in like the 5th, like this pick 170.
Right. So we're going for traits.
Yeah, I'm taking Ford Wheaton. I'm not too concerned about it.
And you're not even slowing down. So now we skip the 6th round entirely.
Yep. Which is, it happens. There'll be someone there that will be sad we missed, but
so now at this point, I want to take Howden.
Yep. This is the guy they just had in for a visit. They're very clearly high on him. I think he goes higher in the actual draft, but if he's here in the 6th, they're taking him.
Well, 7th.
Oh, yeah, shoot. That's right. We didn't even have a 6th round pick.
We didn't have a 6th. We blew right past the 6th into the 7th, but we have 4 7th rounders. So
yep.
I would say for our first 7th rounder, let's get Howden and not mess around any longer.
Yep.
And now, at this point,
3 picks later, down at 235. The previous one was 232.
Yep. We don't have so now I think we're looking at doubling up at positions. We have our second safety. We don't have a second tight end. I think there's a good chance they'll get one. We don't have a second D lineman, as we talked about before. I think there's a decent chance they take one. I'm not a big fan, though. I guess the one I like best, actually, is probably Nesta Jade Silvera from Arizona State. He's ranked higher on other boards than he is on the PFF board.
Yeah, as we get deeper in these ones, we're hitting guys that I'm not as familiar with, so I'm going to kind of leave it over to you.
I always do 7-round mocks. I like the late rounds. I like looking for those bargains in the late rounds, and often they end up getting drafted earlier than I'm getting them. Like a few years ago, I was picking Dylan and DeGuara every draft, but I was picking him in the 4th round and the 5th round, not the 2nd and the 3rd.
Yep. But here, I remember that because I was like, because I was picking DeGuara in the 5th all the time too. I was like, yeah, it's a great 5th round pick, to get a fullback, get a move, get a tight end that can do a lot of things. They picked him in the 3rd, and I was like, ugh.
And so there are
I think
also
here
some
I'm
tight
picking
ends I
Gaines
like.
here personally.
Right. So do you want to get another inside offensive lineman, or do you want to go for a tackle? Though maybe Saldivar.
I think
Ojukwu
Gaines, you
is
just
still there.
follow the short shuttle law.
He is the best short shuttle of all linemen in the combine, I think.
Yep, follow it. Those linemen turn out well more often than not.
So where's Gaines?
They start like 80% of their snaps, unless we missed him.
No, I think I got. Let's see. He's pretty low down here. There he goes.
John Gaines the second.
UCLA.
Yep, you are a Green Bay Packer.
Super agile. So now we're down to 2 picks left. Do we want to take a quarterback? This is what I'm thinking lately.
No.
O'Connell.
I think the type of backup they need is a vet backup. These are the types of backups you would take if Rodgers was still a quarterback. I don't think you take a young backup to have behind Love because why? You know?
So I'm thinking about a tight end, a second tight end, and a second D lineman. Do we want a third? Is there any third receiver we take over a second player at either of those? The only wide receiver I like really late is Antoine Green from North Carolina. I think he's good enough. But
I don't think they necessarily need another receiver.
I would say
I know Gutekunst said he's interested in adding a vet to that room.
Yes, which would we'll see if maybe they can get somebody in trade. Otherwise, it's like Jarvis Landry or Kenny Galladay.
Well, I think it's most likely going to be Corey Davis.
Yes, I guess we'll see. We'll have to figure out some cap shenanigans to make that work.
But yeah, let's go tight end here. I would be between Strange and Gindorf.
Yeah, those are my 2 favorites. They both may go much higher than this. Some sites have Gindorf in like the 150, and some sites don't have listed at all. I think it's just because he's at North Dakota State. I need Ross Uglum to say how good Gindorf really is. He had just a little bit of tape last year because he got hurt and only played like the first 2 or 3 games. It looked good. He's pretty big too. And so I think he's also blocking and did pretty well for his size. He's like 6'6", 263.
I mean, in this mock, we've already taken Washington, so we do have that bigger tight end.
Right.
And
right.
Strange, how big is Strange? Yeah,
6'4",
Strange is a little smaller.
So I've heard some people, who was it now? That Strange could line up all over. Do some of the fullback, H-back stuff. Maybe not such a good blocker, but can do...
well, given the fact they already took a bigger tight end in Washington, I'm more inclined to lean Strange. I think it changes a bit if they had taken Laporta before.
Yeah, so they took Laporta, then I might lean toward Gindorf here.
All right, let's take Brenton Strange. Tight end.
Right, let's take Strange, tight end. And then see what we got left. We still got 2 quarterbacks at the top of the board. But so the other things you could do, which I have not been doing lately, would be to take a running back, Evan Hull, who they met with at the combine, I think. I could.
Nesta
Jade Silvera.
You see the player 3 more down? Jordan Mims. I ran track with him.
Oh, all right. Should we draft Jordan Mims?
Go Packers! I mean,
look at that rushing grade.
Went to my high school. I ran track with him. He was very, very fast.
Fresno State rushing grade 90.2.
That's quite the grade. I mean, what was I gonna
say? That's awesome.
I mean, yeah, he was a nice guy. He's a good guy. I could see them drafting running back though, because I think there is still a hole in that 3rd spot, and we've seen they like to run 2 backs even when one of the 2 main guys is down. I think here in the 7th would be a perfectly fine place to take a 3rd guy.
Yeah, but they had enough running backs last year to have everybody back in the room.
I mean, do they?
Oh, well, once the season was like half over.
Yeah. I think there's room to improve. I'm blanking on his name. Can you help me very quick?
Who's
their current 3rd running back?
The guy from Memphis.
Yes. No, other guy from Memphis. It's not Patrick. You're killing me.
I'm drawing total blank.
Me too, and I'm embarrassing myself. I'm pulling it up because this is going to try.
And I can even think of
Patrick Taylor.
Patrick
It is Patrick Taylor.
It is Patrick.
Yeah.
And then Goodson, who they had on the practice squad.
That's true. I forgot about Goodson. Goodson was solid in preseason. Actually, it's so solid that a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's gonna be him or Kylan," and then it was Kylan, and then it wasn't Kylan.
Right.
Who are you
still
thinking?
Think they need to add another. I'm thinking of adding Silvera, another interior lineman,
Another interior
D lineman.
Another 7th round interior D lineman. I mean,
yep.
Why not? I mean, I trust your judgment. I could see that argument.
That would be my pick, and I think he's actually might go earlier than this.
Okay, let's go with him then out of Arizona State, and then we'll have kind of shored up some of the D line depth because they're still probably going to have an UDFA there as well.
Right. I think they're right. Because I think they'll be able to get a decent extra running back in camp as an UDFA.
Yeah, I think that's very likely. So, all right, last pick, Nesta Jade Silvera. And that ends our draft. So just walking through this, 15th overall pick, we took Kalijah Cansey, D tackle out of Pittsburgh. 42nd overall pick, which we got from the Jets in the Aaron Rodgers trade, picked Darnell Washington, tight end out of Georgia. 45th overall pick, the Packers' original second-round pick, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, edge out of Kansas State. 78th overall pick, picked wide receiver Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee. 116th overall pick, safety Jair Brown out of Penn State. Can you scroll down for me a little, Dad?
Oh, sorry.
149th pick, guard Chandler Zavala out of NC State. 170th pick in the 5th round, wide receiver Bryce Ford Wheaton out of West Virginia. Skipping down to the 7th round, pick 232, Jordan Howden, safety out of Minnesota, who they just met with. Pick 235, guard John Gaines II out of UCLA, best short shuttle of any of the linemen this year. Pick 242, tight end Brenton Strange out of Penn State. And then final pick, 256, interior defensive lineman Nesta Jade Silvera out of Arizona State. We'll be tweeting a screenshot of this along with the episode so you can follow along. Pretty good draft, Dad. What are your thoughts on anything you wish you could have changed?
The one thing I wish we had been able to get a little bit better was receiver.
Yeah. It just didn't quite fall. I mean, it's not a bad. It's a weaker receiver class than previous years.
Yeah, and I think without doing some trade back to get extra draft picks in like the 2nd and 3rd round, and only getting 1 second from the Jets this year, made it a little hard to. I like to get 2 receivers in like the first 3 or 4 rounds. And we didn't get our first receiver until round 3, and our second receiver at the end of round 5. So that's a little later than, if we want to get two players that have the potential, I think, to be like starters, have a maybe like a 30% chance, but have some chance of actually being a top end receiver, and not a like third or wide receiver of 3 or 4.
Yeah. Well.
But it does kind of round out a little bit. We have a bigger receiver to get across the middle who could replace Lazard, because I think we need somebody catching passes in the middle. And then, of course, we have 2 tight ends as well. And then another speedster. So we have actually it would be a third, because Melton is actually really fast as well, to try to stretch the field and open up the middle and underneath for, say, Dobbs, tight ends, Jones, and new tight ends.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this was our second official mock draft here at the start of April after doing one way back in February. Thanks so much for giving a listen. We also talked a little bit about the owners meeting, the Jets, Packers trade rumors that are still going on, and what the Packers are still doing in all this pre-draft prep. We will be posting this episode along with a image of the mock draft summary on our Twitter at FatherSonPackers. So give us a follow there so you can follow along while you're listening. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be releasing another episode next week, one a week every single week this offseason. And then until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.